Vanessa.
Then we are late to the party, and before we get into the Spider-Man Far From Home spoiler review, this video is sponsored by the good people over at Redbubble.
Yes, please go check out Redbubble. They have tons of cool designs that you can put on t-shirts, mugs, anything that you can put a print on. They basically have it, but it's pretty cool because a lot of the stuff that they have on there is designed by people like you or people who are into creating art around the geek culture.
Pretty much anything you can think of. You can go follow our profile available through the link down in the description of this video, and you can also get a discount, 15% off with the promo code available in this video, and that expires on July 11th, so get over there quick. But now we are going to get into the amazing Spider-Man Far From Home movie, the experience, action-packed, heartwarming, everything I wanted in a Spider-Man movie that is under the regime of the MCU.
It was very interesting to kind of go into this movie because it is post-endgame, and we're like, oh god, what are we going to see? How are they going to take what happened during Endgame and put it into this movie? And I think that they did it very well.
Yes.
I think that the way that they started off the movie was, okay, like, that's how you started out, because that's kind of the first thing you want to know is, okay, where's everyone at this point?
And I do love how they did it with the school announcements at the high school. It's the last day of school, and you do get kind of the backstory about the blip. They're calling it the blip, obviously, because, yeah, like, we know it's a snap, but to them, they were here, they were gone, they were back, and I love the footage that they showed with the marching band disappearing and then showing up randomly at the basketball game. It definitely a nice little refresher in a comedic way, the high school way, getting us right back into where we were with Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yes, and then we kind of already go straight into their trip.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that I feel like is missing during that point, especially from the trailers. Like the part where he goes to get his passport, like he already has his passport when we go.
Did you get your passport? Peter Parker here to pick up a passport, please.
Peter Parker here to pick up his passport, please.
Yeah, because they talk about it when he goes and does the homeless shelter thing, which is kind of cool too, because that's very Aunt May.
Of course.
And it is surrounding itself about people who came back from the blip and have nowhere to go.
Which is different too, yeah, because Aunt May was always helping the homeless, but this is people that are displaced. You get a little backstory as to what has happened to people, kind of the fallout, which they do to dive in a little bit more with Martin Starr. But yeah, the passport scene is missing, and the scene where Spidey is talking to the cops, and he's like, I'm doing your job for you. Oh, and he's like, keep it, keep it together, I'm going on vacation.
Keep up the good work, because I am going on vacation.
That didn't happen either. They just immediately go from Peter being at the shelter to already going on his trip, packing everything up and the luggage from Ben Parker.
Yes, and then of course we are on our way to Europe, Far From Home, basically what it is. And just kind of little clips that they had during the movie was hilarious. It was very simple, but at the same time, you get a lot more about what's going on with the blip as well, and how it affected a lot of people around Peter too, especially with his teachers.
Martin Starr and J.B. Smoove. Okay, so the second that I saw J.B. Smoove, I love J.B. Smoove. Curb Your Enthusiasm, so good. But the second I saw him, I was like, all right, I know what we're getting in here with him. Over-the-top comedy, kind of in its own little world of comedy versus being within Spider-Man, and I knew the effect it would end up having on the movie. I would sit there and say, well, the comedy is kind of taking me out of the movie because they are so ridiculous.
Yeah, it felt like they were kind of like in their own world.
But it was so good. Damn it, did I not, I love J.B. Smoove, and I love Martin Starr. And even though it was over the top and silly, like where Martin Starr's talking about how his wife pretended to blip just so that she could leave him. Yeah, we had a funeral for her. Like, I felt so bad for him, but at the same time, it's hilarious. And being on the trip, it's funny because Peter Parker pretty much turns into Clark Griswold in European Vacation. He's like accidentally falling over backwards into certain situations. And to me, I thought it was silly because at this point, we really haven't gotten Spider-Man. We really only got him for a second in the suit. I love when the Iron Spider kind of came out for a second and opened the curtains and walked through.
Yeah.
But in Europe, like, we're seeing the friendship that is going on this trip and his planning with MJ. It is kind of a jump from the first movie to this one, how it's like, I want to tell her how I feel, but it's like, well, I didn't really feel that way when it came to MJ and Homecoming, you know? But a lot has happened since then. But
Very
a lot
true.
really hasn't happened since then. I mean, it feels like a year is supposed to have passed since Endgame.
I think it has been kind of just a year has passed.
It was an eventful year, I guess.
Since Endgame, and now she's kind of in the forefront with them too. I mean, we kind of see that they were in a lot of things together beforehand, and now that they have this connection because of the blip, that it's maybe a little bit stronger in that sense too.
And of course the MacGuffin of the story is Edith. You know, him getting Edith and going on this trip, he's already ghosting Nick Fury, and I love the incorporation of this tech, this incredibly powerful tech, which is the football they're all trying to get their hands on, or at least when it comes to the villainy of this film.
I absolutely love that you still get Tony Stark without still having Tony Stark be there because of the way, like Edith, like even dead, I'm the hero. So it's like that's the name of Edith, and it's like, okay, that's classic Tony Stark right there. So you kind of still feel him in this movie too. Granted, they do kind of go back in time a little bit, or flashback anyways with him, but it's kind of cool to kind of see I guess Peter Parker take on a little bit of what Tony had too, and see and him using it as like a kid and a teenager, just kind of like, oh, this is awesome, what can I do with this?
Clark Griswold, again, stumbling backwards into situations that he's creating. But yeah, I mean, we get Mysterio, and Mysterio is so fantastic. The way that he executes fighting. I mean, granted, we get him just for a second, you don't want any part of this, you know, which I thought was kind of like, oh, like I want to see what he's doing over here. But we do get that fight, that battle with the Aqua Elemental. And of course, we get Peter trying to help out, but not really successfully helping out. You know, he kind of looks like a kid compared to Mysterio.
His mind is preoccupied with other things.
Of course, yeah, but he still wants to help, you know. And I love how he puts on like the mask, and he's just wearing that to try and help him out. And yeah, he doesn't want to be known. He wants to keep that secret identity secret, which is funny because everybody else in the MCU, that's not a thing, you know. Everybody takes off the mask and everybody knows who they are, but Peter's still hanging on to his childhood. He's still trying to hang on to the fact that nobody knows who he is, so he can live a normal life. But unfortunately, he's not a normal person. He's super, so he needs to figure out how to find that balance. And I love that the balance kind of comes from Nick Fury and Maria Hill with the Night Monkey. The Night Monkey outfit, I mean, it's hilarious too. Anytime that was brought up about the Night Monkey, whether they were talking about it on television or him swinging around, or like, is that Spider-Man? No, it's the Night Monkey. You know, I love how he kind of developed that other identity while he was overseas, because you don't want Spider-Man over there. It's clearly obvious. Obviously, to certain people, he's Spider-Man.
Granted, so now we come to the point too, though, like when we were watching this movie, I'm like, how are they going to twist this to the point? Because obviously we know that Mysterio is one of Spider-Man's villains that he fights. So we're like, okay, how are they going to create that he is actually the villain and not somebody that is there to help that, or like to be there to help them? So the way that they do it in this movie is very interesting.
So good.
And
so
it brings, like, it's very MCU to bring it like full circle with this character too, to be a part of this. And you're like, oh dang, especially when they come to the point where he does the flashback for the toast, because he finally got his hands on Edith.
The exposition toast where he's just spilling everything, which a part of me is like, wow, you're really catching us all up. The writing is on the wall here, but I love it because the way they connected it, even though they only really connected 2 people with the flashbacks, but then they kind of gave out everybody's dissatisfaction with Tony Stark, which is what Toombs ended up having happen to him and why the Vulture was created. It's so perfect the way that there's these characters created from the heroes that are just despising who the heroes are.
I was going to say, so basically, so far that we've seen with Spider-Man, the reason that these villains are their villains is because of Tony Stark. So Tony Stark is making Spider-Man's villains.
Yeah, pretty much. Which at one hand...
MCU.
Yeah, which at one hand is kind of a negative, because you're like, oh man, I want Peter Parker to be able to develop these villains. Like, even Peter Parker, like, a lot of the things he's trying to do is live up to Tony Stark, whereas before he was living up to Ben Parker, but we've seen that multiple times already. It's been played out, so now we're kind of shifting. It's different, and I love that it's different.
I love that it's different too, because, you know, the comics are always different. You always have different storylines happening within those, like, whatever, how many issues that they do, and then they go on and move on to a different story, but with the same character.
Of course.
So I really like that, because of this being part of the MCU, that they kind of made, I guess, Tony Stark, in a way, his uncle, like, take over that part a little bit through the MCU, and you could kind of see that with Peter Parker and him kind of having to contain or live up to that expectation, but at the same time he's like, how can I?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a lot of conflict within him, and I loved Mysterio before he became the Mysterio that we all know, because he was so sweet and so nice and so helpful to Peter Parker. I didn't want to see him go bad, but I knew it had to happen somewhere. For a while I was like, oh, they're gonna kill him, and this world's Mysterio is gonna take over and take the tag, because I loved him so much that I didn't want him to be bad. To the point where you're
like, oh, like, you wanted him to be from another world.
Yeah, I wanted him to be good.
And the alternate from this world
would take it over.
But he's actually like, no, this is my time to be like a villainous thing. But no, they basically like tell him like he's a scorned employee of Tony Stark.
Poor Beck, man. I mean, his tech got called Barf. And I love how they connected that to Civil War, and then going back all the way to Iron Man with Obadiah firing the guy who ends up being basically the mastermind behind the tag. Like, it's just so perfect the way they orchestrated it and created it, to the point where I was like, damn, this is organic as hell, and I love every bit of
for
it.
For the MCU.
Where I was so happy he was the villain at that point, because they did it so beautifully that I was so happy that he was that much of an a-hole, especially his arrogance, and he's talking like Lou Bloom from Nightcrawler, the way he's just spouting off about how he's creating the world, he's creating the truth through everything he's showing people. People will believe what he tells them or what he shows them with their own eyes. So that's pure Lou Bloom. He's creating the narrative for them. And it like that. Now I know why Jake Gyllenhaal was the one that got this part, because he's already played that part once, and that was a much more tame, quieter version. This is a maniacal, over-the-top, fantastical Marvel villain.
There's a lot of CGI in this movie because there's a lot of hallucinations in this movie, and it's great. I liked it because of what he did, and when he was trying to go after, like, he's so dark, he's like, I gotta kill this kid, and he does it so...
He's like, I don't want to, I gotta.
Yeah, and it's so perfect, though, too, just the way that he, like, it's layers. Like it's not just blah at you, it's like different layers that he puts Peter Parker into these scenes, and just like, wait, what's real, what isn't, like, you don't understand. Like, the whole time I was sitting there, I was like, oh my god, what's going on?
And it kept happening over and over to the point where you're like, oh dang, this, okay, now it's over, we're out of the hallucination.
And it's like,
nope, we're still in the hallucination.
We're still in it.
Oh, and it's so beautiful, and I love it too, because all this is going on, and it's affecting the class, it's affecting the teachers, and I love J.B. Smoove when he's talking about, he's like, we came for science, but we're leaving because of witches. Like, him and the witches, man. And even when, like, Peter has the glasses and he's looking around, and even says something about witches in the bio of J.B. Smoove's. So, yeah, I love how they're just getting shifted around because of Nick Fury. And because of what's going on with Mysterio, like, they're just at the whim of everything going on with this battle between Peter and everybody else.
And the fact that, like, all of this is happening around Michael Giacchino's score, too. Yeah. I love that Michael Giacchino, like, he perfectly placed when there needed to be that Spider-Man theme that we know from Homecoming.
Right.
And then adding different elements to it, too. Because you're like, oh, okay. Like, this felt familiar and stuff, so it felt like a continuation, but then also adding new things to it. And that's what I really like about Michael Giacchino, is that he does perfectly take what's done. I mean, granted, it is his music that he did from before,
right?
But taking his music, but then adding layers to it. Like, there's just a bunch of layers. You know what? This is like an onion.
It's like an onion or a parfait. People like parfaits. But going through different regions of their trip, Michael Giacchino ends up changing the music based off of what region that they're in, as well as the soundtrack. Not just the score, but the soundtrack changes based on where they are. It's usually in the language of the city that they're in. And it's great, like that mixture between Peter Parker's music, their music, and then of course the music that he uses for Mysterio, which I wanted a little bit more of. It's like electronic and kind of weird and funky for a bit, but it's still fantastic. But yeah, that conflict, that battle between him, Mysterio, and Spider-Man, hit by the train, ending up with the hooligans. Like, I love how he ends up calling on Happy Hogan to bring him out, bring the help. And I love that conversation with them on the plane. I mean, you saw it in the trailer too, that connection. Tony wouldn't have sacrificed himself if it wasn't for you being here. Like, that was his goal the whole time. That was the motivation for Tony.
He knew what he was leaving behind.
Of course, and it was to get Spider-Man back. It was to get Peter back. And I love that whole thing where he's talking of like, tell me something that only you know. And he's like, oh, remember the movie that you ordered, but it didn't have the titles, but I could tell by the price?
Yeah.
So good, man. I love it. I love the banter between everybody. Yeah, from Germany, from Civil War. So much connective tissue from Civil War. The adult film in Germany. I love it.
This is kind of the turning point for him too, for Peter Parker, when he realizes, like, no, this is something that I need to focus on now and fix.
Yeah.
Because
he made a huge
mistake. And you can totally tell the devastation in the way that he feels on the inside and on the outside.
Right. And then getting Tony, like, I said getting Tony, you notice that? Yeah. Getting Happy to have that connection with Tony, especially when he's there building the new Spider-Man suit, and he's like, what? And he's like, nothing. He's just kind of soaking it up, and he turns on the Back in Black. And they're like, I love Led Zeppelin.
That's Peter Parker right there, with the way that they created him in this universe too. But when they put AC/DC on when he's like making his suit, like, I was like, I got choked up because I was like, oh my god, that like reminds you of Tony Stark.
And when he came to that realization before he built that suit too, that Giacchino Avengers theme. But it's Giacchino's Avengers theme taken from Alan Silvestri, but we get Giacchino doing the theme where he does it, where he finally realizes his calling, and you're just combining that. I love that jet scene. He's like, we've been hovering over a field in Holland for 15 minutes. Like, what's the plan? What do we do next? And I love that he finally came to that realization thanks to Happy, because again, it connects that tissue once more to Iron Man, to Tony Stark, and then the big battle in London. Man, the big battle in London is so fantastic. I love how he totally puts this Avengers level catastrophe, and he kept saying that too, it's got to be Avengers level.
To the point where it's like Spider-Man has gotten to the, like, being in the universe of the MCU and the Avengers, you have that underlining issue of like, well, why wouldn't there be other Avengers coming to save this? Like, this doesn't make sense. Why? Like, and that happens to right, and it happens to the other ones when they have their standalone movies too. It's like, why wouldn't they have the Avengers come and help? Granted, they did talk about it a little bit where they're like, they're off world or not available, but even then, it's like, I feel like there's still some out there that they didn't even talk about.
Yeah, Scarlet Witch. You had the new Captain America. Hell, you could pull Bucky Barnes. You have all of Doctor Strange and every sorcerer out there. That
they said that Doctor Strange was unavailable, but
I won't accept unavailable. Granted, though, that's the thing about this movie is anything that I kind of had problems with, they solved with the fact that, you know what, they didn't really know how to get in touch with the Avengers at that moment because it technically wasn't Nick Fury or Maria Hill. Although we did get Maria Hill rocking a bazooka, saving Nick Fury while freaking Jake Gyllenhaal's trying to kill him, and everything is not as it seems. You may as well just winked in the camera. Like, it's so good because, you know, they're astute to what is going on.
Right.
But I do, like, the whole time I'm like, that's not Nick Fury, just in terms of, like, Sam Jackson, what are you doing? The bitch you've been to space is the most Nick Fury I felt in that whole movie. And the whole
But
time I'm
even
wondering
then,
what
too,
is going on.
I feel like that's not Nick Fury either. Like, it was just like somebody
Sure.
trying to over-exaggerate being Nick Fury.
Yeah. Over the top, like I'm kind of trying to adopt those mannerisms.
Right.
An over elaborate Nick Fury.
Right.
And of course, again, we get the reason for that.
Right.
But everything is going down in London. We get a Power Rangers and a Voltron reference where they're coming together. Oh, what is it? Like the Power Rangers? No, you're thinking of Voltron. And then you get the whole crew running around with Happy Hogan, because I was wondering how that was going to play out when I saw it in the trailer. New plan when the ship blows up.
Like,
and
what are they gonna do?
oh, and they're running into the vault and they're fighting the drones, and you get the one amazing moment. I saw it when he picked up the shield. When Happy picked up the shield, I was like, oh, hell yeah, we're going to get a Captain America moment.
Sort of. And he tries to throw it, and of course it's very Happy-like, and he's like, how does Cap do that?
And I'm the whole time I'm dying with these comedy aspects as well as the action. Like, I am invested on every level as it's playing out before my eyes, and I'm losing my mind. And then when they're about to die, when everything is going wrong, you're gonna get them opening up to each other in the vault, and then Happy spills the guts about how he's in love with Spider-Man's aunt. Well, I thought we're opening up. I thought we're sharing. But yeah, I mean, it's nice that they worked as a team. They got to do something all together. It's like, I saved everybody's life. Yeah, but we're all about to die. Poor Flash. They give a little bit more to Flash in this movie.
That's true too. You kind of feel bad for him a little bit.
Just a little bit.
But I feel like also the classic trope like thing that they do for the popular bully kid that's
little bit
misunderstood type person. I feel like we've seen that before in movies too. So, and
one thing that I do felt that got a little shoehorned in, well, that came out of nowhere, was the Peter Tingle, was the Spidey sense, and it's like the whole banana thing. Like, I was like, okay, well, it's because it's not lethal. It's not going to hurt him. That's why he can't feel the banana. That's the way I thought they were going to go. And wasn't the case. It's like, oh, it hasn't been working. I'm like, well, where'd this come from? When did that stop working?
It's more so like he doesn't know how to control it or anything. But I feel like
it is fresh. It showed up in Infinity War, so he hasn't had it for that long.
Right. But I feel like with Spider-Man, it was kind of more so like, didn't he already always have it?
I don't think so. The first time we ever saw it was when he's on the bus.
Right, in Infinity War. That's the first time that we really saw it. But I feel like at that point, everyone's like, where's his spider sense?
Yeah, but
why doesn't he have it?
Maybe it's still fresh to him. He obviously doesn't know what to call it. But I do love how it came into play in that final battle with Beck, when it came to the new hallucination on the bridge, and everything just disappears, and it's the long hallway, and he's like, it's not real, and it's just Spidey moments, just him flipping around and knocking stuff away, and you get that fantastic moment between him and Mysterio too, where another rope-a-dope pulls the wool over his eyes, and it's like, oh, he's shot and all that, and then bam, when he stops
there, I was like. At that moment too, when I was watching, I was like, "Wait a minute, what just happened? What just happened?" And I was like, "Oh wait, no, he's right there." Like I was like, "Wait, did he just get shot?"
Right. The Peter Tingle came into full force, and that whole scene, everything he did was.
I also feel like it was convenient for the sake of being convenient, though. Too. It's like all of a sudden, it's like, okay, I got my Peter Tingle back.
Yeah, and that's why, because I didn't feel like we really had the whole, oh, it's not working, It was just kind of like, they said it wasn't working, and that's why it kind of showed up, but I still love the scene. I love the hallucination. I love how we kind of stopped back, and he ended up getting everything to stop, execute everything, which reminded me of Doctor Who, when the little drones are coming in, and then they're all kind of flying away. Yeah. But I love how he kind of took control back. I mean, he ended up dominating over Mysterio. He won, and it was so great. Like, I was so happy everything was back to normal, and we do get more of that, like, MJ and Spidey, that very awkward relationship, which was great because they're so awkward together, but we get the kiss, the super awkward kiss on the bridge. I know, it was great. I love it.
Like, they were just like, but I feel like it's them too. Like, it was just like two pecks, and then they go for it, and I'm like, okay.
Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Mysterio talking about how people will believe anything, kind of hammering it home, where if you just give them the right visual aids, they'll be able to figure out what is true in their own minds.
Yeah. And then going back to what we talked about, how in this story of Peter Parker, it's more so about him living up to Tony Stark,
right,
versus Ben. And so, like, even with, like, his luggage is gone and missing, you're like, oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that's right, it blew up. And I was like, oh, but that was Ben Parker's luggage. Like, you guys focus on the fact that it was Ben Parker's luggage. And now it's blown up and gone, and they're like, oh yeah, your luggage blew up, okay. I was like, oh, man, they really don't care about Ben Parker in this story. But maybe that's something they'll focus on later. Maybe. And that's where Flash, like, did Mother couldn't make it? Like, nope. Oh, okay, well, that kind of sucks, too.
Yeah.
But, yeah, getting that jump into the Spider-Man that we know and love.
I was gonna say, I really feel like the first half of the movie, like with the action scenes and everything, felt very, Civil War, MCU, Spider-Man from that era. And then as soon as we got closer towards the end of the movie, and it really, like, full force of him being like Spider-Man and being in New York, it felt like Spider-Man, like, okay, we are in the world of Spider-Man now. And it was like kind of towards the end of the movie, and especially when he's swinging around and he's going to meet MJ, and then he's taking pictures and stuff. I was like, oh, that reminds me of this PS4 Spider-Man game.
Taking pictures with his cell phone, or with his phone. Like, I love that he's doing that, because, yeah, that's exactly like it is in the Spider-Man game, versus going and putting his, old school film SLR, putting it up and webbing it, he's going around and taking shots and doing the flips.
It is the future.
And, well, future is now. And I love when he goes and he picks up NJ and takes her for her swing through the city. It's a realistic approach to the swing through the city. And I just loved it, because that's how it would really be, like, when the camera's focused on her. I know, because
you're holding on to somebody, just like, that's it. You have no harness, no nothing.
Yeah.
And you're holding on because of this web, and you're just like, oh my God.
These big old drops, your stomach drops, and then you're, and that's what we got from her. And I loved it, because you never really saw that from anybody that swung around with Spider-Man. And then, then the part, obviously, that is the best, drops her off, goes on his way, and then we get that mid-credit scene.
Oh my gosh.
And the mid-credit scene, I don't think I've ever responded more physically while watching a movie than during this mid-credit scene.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like this scene and, like, the whole portal scene in Endgame are, like, right up there as far as getting a reaction out of me in the theater for a movie, for an MCU movie, because as soon as that TV goes on and you see the newscast, you're like, okay, what's going on? Okay, they're talking about what happened, sure. And then when they say the Daily Bugle, you're like, oh my God, are they gonna show him? And then as soon as they show freaking J.K. Simmons, I was like, oh yeah.
And it's funny, because the way it's laid out, the way they're building up to the reveal of who's gonna pop up on the screen, right there, we're like, no freaking way. Yeah. They're gonna put J.K. Simmons on the screen, aren't they? As J. Jonah Jameson. It's gonna happen. So, like, your body is trying to prepare before it hits the screen, and even when it hits the screen, it's like, I totally felt like Ian Malcolm. He did it. That son of a bitch did it. Like, it was, they did it. They actually did what we were hoping for. Which is, there can't be another J. Jonah Jameson. It is J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, he does embody the way that J. Jonah Jameson is. And just hearing his voice and hearing him lash out about Spider-Man, I was like, this brings me back to Spider-Man 2. So
1 through 3.
But Spider-Man 2 is my favorite out of the 3.
And when he's like, Mysterio, the greatest hero we've ever had, it's like, oh my God, it's so perfect. The man is the Fox News of the MCU. And I love that they brought J.K. Simmons back, and he looks different. So if there were other universes, multiverses, it's like, oh, this is our MCU J. Jonah Jameson.
Right? And then he's in, obviously he's still probably in the other universe with the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker.
Yeah. So we've got this multiverse going on. It's so great.
It happens, but coming home from that, I was just thinking about that scene, and I was just like, they really did it. They really did bring him back. Because granted, yes, they could have gone with somebody else. Yeah. Maybe someone who was like younger to play him. But
they didn't. They went with the way they knew it should have been.
Right. They went with JK. And I'm just really glad that he was willing to come back
Of
and
course.
was like, yeah, I'll do it.
And it's fantastic. Like that to me was a perfect exclamation point on the end of a great movie, a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Another thing we didn't talk about that I absolutely loved was the grounded reality outfit of Mysterio. Once it all came down, the shroud was gone and he's wearing the mocap suit and kind of the visor that goes around, like perfection. That's one thing that I loved about Homecoming was the way that they got Vulture's suit to feel so organic, grounded in reality and natural. They did it here with that suit. So when he's rocking that suit, because it does fade away in that final battle, and then seeing the suit that he's rocking with the mocap.
And he still has
Perfect.
the suit though,
Of course.
too.
Yeah, yeah. You know,
Like an actual real suit.
When they're talking about the cape.
Do you still need the cape? Yes,
yes, I'll need the cape. Oh, it's so good. But yeah, then getting to the final scene, all of the things that I had, the issues I had with Nick Fury feeling weird, resolved, because obviously it's Ben Mendelsohn, of course.
But it is such a, like, I wonder if that's like their way, like, oh, by the way, this is like, if you ever felt like Nick Fury didn't feel like Nick Fury, this is why.
Yeah.
And it's just, but it was so weird and so out of the blue at the same time too, to the point where like, this is just them saying like, oh, by the way, the scrolls are still here.
Which I love.
They
I love
still
that the scrolls are
exist.
still there. I love it.
You know, Secret Wars.
Yeah, Secret Wars. I love that it's still around, even though they are more silly than I would have liked. But still, like, it's the fact that they're still around. It's connected to Captain Marvel. Now it makes more sense why he's like, don't invoke her name. Because I was like, why would Nick Fury say that?
Yeah.
But now it makes sense. So all the issues that I had are resolved because they were
funny,
scrolls.
like, he's in space himself.
Yeah,
Like, what?
what's he
Like,
doing there? Just
I thought that Brie Larson was going to come out. I thought
Sure.
Captain Marvel was going to
Yeah.
be there with him. But
Hey,
like,
Peter Parker.
he's just there
got
with a
something
bunch
for
of scrolls too.
Right.
So.
But either way, Spider-Man Far From Home, that was us just analyzing very quickly throughout the whole movie. We came for science, we're leaving because of witches. Like, there's so many amazing moments in it to the point where I had to just remember them and quote them. But I do want to see it again. I want to see it again partly because of that J.K. Simmons scene. But I do really, really like this movie. I gave it a 4.8 during our non-spoiler review, but as we were talking about it, anything that I had problems with, I was kind of able to talk myself out of them, but then kind of talk myself back. So yeah, because of that, because I kept thinking about it, I give it a 5, like a 5 out of 5 for me. I bumped it up a bit from 4.8.
I give it. There are noticeable issues with the movie. I'm not arguing about that because
Right.
there are some things that I'm like, okay, it didn't feel like Spider-Man when I wanted it to feel like Spider-Man. I felt like it was more so like them trying to push more of MCU ways of a Spider-Man. But other than that, like, I had a lot of fun. I came out of there like my mind being blown from the post-credit scene, but just the movie itself and the fact that we got Mysterio, a new Spider-Man villain in the movies itself is always a good thing. That's what I love about going into movies, that they don't repeat villains, because that's is one thing
Everyone does it.
I mean, true. And Spider-Man I feel like Spider-Man is the one that's kind of like the Batman of the MCU as far as having a big array of
A rogues gallery.
very what's the word?
Diverse.
Diverse rogue of villains, but also famous villains, I guess is the word, like popular villains,
Sure.
because everybody
You know
knows
their names.
You know the names of the villains that Spider-Man goes after, just the same you know the villains of Batman.
Yeah, of course, and that's because it was the animated series, series for
that's
Batman, the animated series on Fox for Spider-Man. Those help a ton.
Yeah.
Whereas you get Superman, you got Lex Luthor, you got Brainiac, you got Doomsday, and then you with the general public they kind of drop off from there. But the thing is, like, I want to know from somebody who doesn't know any of the story, how did they feel about the whole, like, Mysterio being the bad guy?
Misdirection.
No clue. They don't give it to you in the trailers. They don't give
That's
it to
true,
you
they
in the
don't.
first half of the movie. You have no clue until everything fades away, and he's just like, that was easy. And it's like, what? Like the rug pulled out from under those that didn't know.
Right.
Like, I kind of wish I could erase my memory and go watch it that way, because it's interesting for those people that
it
don't
would be
know.
interesting to go watch it was somebody who had no clue that Mysterio was a villain in the Spider-Man universe.
Right.
So to go in and be like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, that is definitely something that, and the way that they do it too is really good.
That's why I say I wish I'd take my mom. No, dude, my mom knows. She's the one that bought me the comic. She was reading them too. So it's like I can't take my mom because she already knows. She's probably already seen it twice. But either way, guys, thank you for watching our full spoiler review for Spider-Man Far From Home. What did you guys think? Obviously, what are your favorite moments from the movie? Tell us down in the comments below. Feel free, say whatever you want since it's spoilers.
Let us know what you liked. Let us know what you didn't like about the movie. Tell us what your favorite scenes were. Down in the comments below, and then you can also chat with us on our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and Stardust.
All the social networking gin joints, you know where they are. Kicking to the party, fuel the party, keep the party going on our Patreon, gets us where we need to go. And we will be at San Diego Comic-Con very soon. If you guys are there, Wednesday through Sunday, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be busy. Stranger Things is starting soon, so join our Patreon. You'll get the full episode watch-alongs on our Patreon way earlier than you'll get them on YouTube because we got to cut those suckers down, and that takes a while.
Yeah.
But you'll be getting those full Patreon episodes a hell of a lot earlier if you follow us there. But thank you guys so much, and as always,
now it's time to say goodbye.
this party is over.
Bye. Go up, go.